Welcome to our Open Operations Meetup for the 17th of June. Today we have our topic documentation, which is a crucial part of every software project. And I'm very happy that Max agreed to have the presentation about the SCS documentation. And why this is special, you will learn during the next minutes. Please, Max, take over.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I made a presentation within our HedgeDoc instance, so I've pasted it into the chat. But otherwise, you can still follow here on my screen. So yeah, the storyline today is from single docs to comprehensive information architecture, an excerpt from our ongoing journey. Ongoing journey because a lot of has changed during from when we started and to our approach, which I presented at last year's FOSDEM as well. Some parts are still working as I presented there, but a lot of has changed. So I think most of you know the Sovereign Cloud Stack, right? First, to myself, my name is Max Wolfs. I'm a knowledge management engineer at the Sovereign Cloud Stack project and responsible for the information architecture of the docs.sce.community, which is our not only the documentation platform, but also about the standards and the community. And why is documentation important? You probably know it. It's essential for onboarding. It helps new contributors and users quickly to understand and engage with the project. And it ensures consistency and standardization while maintaining and uniform the code practices and the process across the team, which is basically very important if we have a look at the size of the project. And it's, of course, vital for open source success because it provides the foundation for an open source project to live, grow, and thrive, which we all currently know is also very important. Short to the SCS project, you probably all know it, but I brought the explanation from our current website and also the picture, which makes it kind of clear that it's very complex and not an easy, monolithic software application that needs just a documentation, but it's a collection of several packages, and alone the SCS document, the SCS organization on GitHub has 100 own repositories, and we also consume different upstream repositories where there's also code contributed, and the docs should work for the individual repositories, but as well for the whole Sovereign Cloud Stack project. This is basically the biggest challenge. And for the project itself, it has 3 pillars: the standards, reference implementation, and the open knowledge part, where also this meeting, I guess, is a very important part of what I'm currently doing, like talking about the approach of the documentation. And also the Sovereign Cloud Stack, it has 4 layers: the infrastructure as a service, the container layer, the identity and access management, and the operational tooling, which also has to be somehow covered by the documentation. But the question is where to start, because in the beginning we had, I think, not 100 repositories, but still a high 2-digit number, and also a lot of contributors. And the question was, okay, there was a docs repository with some markdown files, ADR, and design consideration files. So the question was where and how to start. And the approach was, we wanted to have one entry point, well, basically a single page with the best possible UX or DX, user experience or developer experience. And also serves different starting points for different needs and the different roles that are needed. For example, there are some developers who are developing or contributing code to our own repositories or to upstream projects. There are operators who just use documentation. And there are, of course, people who do tooling just for the tenders on the repositories that are needed, for example, the Zool. So there is a whole of different roles and different needs that, have to be covered, or at least have to be differentiated in the landing page, that people know where to quickly come and get their information. Otherwise, they are bounced and are maybe frustrated. Also, we wanted and have nightly automated builds that the documentation is always on the latest state. And which was also quite a challenge is that the structure of the teams and the layers is also being represented in the documentation, which somehow is opposing the next point, that it's methodically oriented on the diataxis taxonomy, which you see an image on the bottom side, because it's basically split up into those 4 different quadrants in tutorials that are there for if you want to learn, but you don't usually learn when you are at work. Then how-to guides, which have one singular goal that you probably need when you want a quick start and get fast to your goal, or how to set something up. And then we want explanations within our documentation that serve just the understanding, but it's more kind of a studying state, and also the standard reference information. And if we wanted to basically structure the whole documentation like the diataxis, it would not be easy to actually represent the structure of the whole complexity of the project with its layers and the teams. So it's kind of an custom adaptation that tries to cover both. The biggest challenge, though, was and still is how do we implement the upstream docs with maintaining the UX of a single page application. So if you know the OpenStack documentation or others that have different modules, it's often lists with links, and lists with links are breaking your way of finding information and getting forward. So the aim was, or the target of the documentation, that we do not want to often click on different links, but stay in one instance of a single page application. So what we have developed was custom build script for Docusaurus, which we use to render the page, that include all necessary doc files of the upstream repository and other repositories from the Sovereign Cloud Stack GitHub repository. As I said before, it's automated nightly builds and syncing all external docs. We have enforced strict markdown linking and link validator on each pull request, because in the beginning we have been made, or people from other companies contacted us that we change the link, or that links are dead. So we implemented this as well, which is quite good that we don't have any broken links. Because if you find one broken link, you think, okay, but if you have the second, you lose trust. And what we need for our project is accountability and trust in the documentation, because otherwise the quality is not there enough. We are using post-install scripts for collecting all the external docs. And this possibility led us also to the generation, or we've developed, or a shout out to Matthias Büchse, who in our SIG sanitization has written generation scripts for the standard pages, which is also an automatic build of the pages of our standards that are published automatically. And the last point is also very important, because if you have a lot of text and lists and categories and a tree view, then okay, it's good to get an image of the project itself in a list. But it's also important to have a visual representation of the actual architecture or the documentation itself. So we also developed an automated architectural overview from all the documentation packages. There is a docs definition file. It's the docs package.json that lies in the repository, in the docs repository. And it looks like this, where we define the organization with a specific repository. It's currently only in GitHub, but it would also, of course, work with GitLab. We define the source files which should be implemented, the target file, the target directory within our docs page files, and a label. And currently we have, I think, almost 20 entries of external docs repositories we implement docs files from those repositories. And and what I just said, we need to make it visible, and not only visible, but also interactive, because the problem with images is they don't scale, they look differently on every screen. But it would have been nice if the actual overview image does not only act as an image for your brain map of the sovereign cloud stack, but also as a spatial link. And this is what we've developed, the architectural overview, which is also interactive. Which I show you in just a second demonstration of the page. But the architecture layers is actually the same component being rendered here. So I hope you can see it, but it looks okay. This is the landing page of our documentation. We have here what I said earlier, the different starting points or entry points for different roles. Here we have the introduction, where we come directly to the for operators page. And the releases, where we can check out the latest release notes if you want to go there, because we made a questionnaire where we found out that people wanted to go straight to release notes. Then the FAQ, the SCS compliant clouds, which are in production, which could be tested, the architecture layers from a very, very high level view, the ops, the container, the EAM, and the IIS. And if we click on those starting points, you see you can see it. Here we come to the container layer introduction page and to the ops layer introduction page. So we just jump to the one step deeper. And for the additional resources, the community part or the standardization, deployment examples, and directly to our matrix chat, this you find in the part below. If we start the technical documentation for operators, we see here the architectural overview, which is being generated from the docs package.json, as well as the content files here on the left. This is what I meant with, we have here the tree of the docs files, but also visual representation where we can also directly jump into the components that are being implemented from external repositories. For example, in the ops layer, the monitoring. And so the aim is that I now have a better understanding that the operating SCS is, or the monitoring is a component within the components in the operating SCS tree view, but is also being represented from the high-level perspective in the architectural image. So this is the operator documentation. The standards as one of the 3 pillars of the Sovereign Cloud Stack project has its own page, which are also generated via an automated script, are located here, where we have an overview of the standards that are either stabilized, deprecated, or in review. Then we have the contributor section, which is basically for the internal operational tooling. The community part, where we have an overview of basically how to connect with us, our mission statement. Then the community calendar, introduction to all of the teams and special interest groups, our communicational tools and the tools we use, like Jitsi, we're currently in now, and also how to contribute to the docs, basically the workflow, the linting guide, how you can run it on your own machine. And of course, the FAQ. And the glossary, where all of the different terms are described. Yeah, that's the implementation of the technical documentation, also of the standards and the community part. And I already come to the conclusion. What I have is that it was very vital for the implementation or the journey of the implementation, which is still ongoing, is that the hackathon sessions were very, very important, because there in Cologne at Plus Server, we've developed with Tim and Ramona the initial script we wanted to implement. Or there we did the decision that it's a best fit to copy, distill, and sync external files, documentation files from external or upstream repositories. Still, it was a Python script in the beginning. Currently, it's being written in Node.js as a post-install script. But yeah, in the second hackathon in Nuremberg at WaveCon, we've developed what's important for an overview. So the graphical visualization of the project. And in the last hackathon in Dresden at Cloud and Heat, we had a very, very productive session with people who used the documentation from Art Codex, as well as people that are working on tenders, where we basically developed our introduction page with the different starting points and also implemented then the graphical visualization, the overview. And there is also what was difficult in the whole process is the inconsistent group size of the whole project. A lot of people on the way are not part of anymore, but yeah, we still managed to make it work. But I think that's how it works in those open source projects. Yeah, I forgot the fourth hackathon in Ansbach. Thank you, Kurt. That's true. But in the Ansbach hackathon, we had not a focus on the documentation page, on the docs page, but on the more on the future landing page of the project itself, not docs. But yeah, of course, the hackathons and the sessions are vital for the discussions, for getting together and really work productive on one single topic, and yeah, getting the energy into the coding tunnel and then getting things done is very, very productive, which is often good. Yeah, good. It's very good. Yeah, and also essential the contributions from outside, from the real world, where people try the documentation and then they come into our matrix chat and say, well, here or there, things didn't work out, and then we're improving it, and then people also contribute back what's actually the best thing in the world to grow the whole project, because the documentation is still one of the most important things you get in touch if you set up SCS. Yeah, and the documentation, how it works, how it improves, how it will be further developed, is happening at the SIG documentation. And the next one is on the 1st of July at 11:05 Central European Summer Time. And you can also find the link to our session. Yeah, today it was also the SIG documentation, but you can find the link at our community part of the documentation page. And with this, I want to thank you and ask into the round if you have any questions or remarks.
Thank you, Max. Kurt, that was quick.
Yeah, I used to do track chairs at conferences, and one of the things I learned to do there, I always have questions. Max, I think you referenced the Sovereign Cloud Stack projects many times in your presentation. But I mean, based on your view on how open source software development happens, which of the problems you solved, or we solved together in the hackathons, but I think you were instrumental to this, you think are really specific SCS, and which ones apply to a lot of similar open source projects where you integrate software from a number of sources?
Good question. Two points or two things I would say. One is both how far the horizontal stretch is and how vertical it gets. So it's very big and very complex, and this transforming this into one single page application is really one big problem. Like I said at the beginning, if you have just a single software project to document, it's far easier, and then you generate a domain model, for example, then you have your reference, or if it's just an API to document, it's still a lot to do, but the size of it and how high level it is and how low level or how detailed it is to give an understanding, an image to the users is just very difficult. And to put it into a few sentences, to put it into a few images, because the attention span of people is not getting bigger from year to year. So it's getting more difficult to do actually that. And the second thing is that currently in the project, there's a lot of developers that are being paid to contribute to the project. And then there are others who are doing it because they're not paid, and others are using it. So we have, I think, different roles on who's using the docs, who's writing them, and how it evolves over time. And this the mixture of it is really unique, I think, from a project, software project that is doing a lot of upstream work and which has public funding and which then has people from the outside who are using it and operating it coming together. And I think this is also quite unique and different to other open source projects. Because I would say that in other open source projects, there are more people using it who contribute in a whole.
Okay, maybe just to follow up, a great answer, Max. So I think what I heard you saying is that other projects probably will have similar challenges, so the methodology will be useful. But the fact that, I mean, we're integrating lots of upstream projects, that we have a community where contributors, users, developers do not overlap that much, makes it a bit more difficult. So others may have an easier job to create documentation that makes sense for the documentation consumers.
Very well summarized. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or additions or experiences? If not, you mentioned several times that the decision was made that you have one page for all kind of roles which are contributing to SCS. And you mentioned a list of links. What would be the alternative, or what kind of documentations are there?
For example, just linking to external pages, linking to external repositories. For example, if we are on the infrastructure as a service introduction on the EOS layer page, we would then say, yeah, here, if you want, we use OSISM. Please see the OSISM docs. Here's the hyperlink, and then you will be redirected to the OSISM documentation, and then you are at another place and have information that is there additionally, and then you have to understand what information do I need in the context of SCS, and what information do I not need, and this takes so much time, and I would get, I think, or people would get more frustration out of that, because it takes so much time to go through a lot of different documentation pages that look different, feel different, have a different navigation, and this would be the alternative in an extreme way.
And you also mentioned you automated some parts of the documentation. What does it mean? How does it interact with maybe GitHub, or what is automated?
The build process. We're using the DocuSource framework as single page application, and in order to serve it as static HTML files to visitors, the source code is being built, bundled, and made all together into something that browsers can understand. And this is being done every day. And within this workflow of building, the scripts are injected basically, and all the different docs from OSISM and from other sovereign cloud stacks repositories are being basically copied and then refined or distilled, as we called it in Cologne at the first hackathon, and then being integrated. And if there is a pull request and the links are checked, and also the markdown formatting is checked, and if something is not correct, it fails, and then we have to fix it. But it usually runs very well, and this is nice. And I think this is also was an interesting process in the beginning to really be very strict about the markdown linting. But it helps now that there is not that much of errors, actually.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a last question from me. Do you have a hint or a best practice tip for people who want to start a documentation, or who are in need to have or develop a documentation for a software project?
Yeah, the Ataxis approach is very, very good to work through, and it's always good to discuss that. And in the end, I haven't actually experienced that if you apply some theory 100%, it's the solution for everything. But it's a very good framework, or it's not a framework, it's a taxonomy, how to approach documentation. And it helps to get the mental model of it. In what state do people learn, and what happens actually on a meta side. And before you even implement anything, it's important to open your brain for these basics, I think.
Yes, good.
Yeah, maybe not a question, but a comment just confirming what you say, Max. I think for me personally, reading through this Ataxis was really eye-opening, because before that, I think I was confused when I thought documentation. I was trying to serve different purposes without having a clear understanding and distinction of those different purposes. And actually having that mental model helps me to clearly take a decision, okay, which one am I currently working on? And then you also can optimize it for a lot more, as opposed to mixing all things together. So for me, it was extremely helpful.
Yeah, that's nice. And even though the SCS documentation, there is still a lot of room to improve. So it's not even perfect at all. And the second point, what's good is the Writer Docs community. They have also a very nice community, and a Slack channel, or Slack, a lot of Slack channels. A Slack network, I think it's called. They are very helpful. They do conferences, and I was very lucky to have one of the content leads of the MDN Docs here in Bremen, which I had a lot of conversations and discussions with, because they have, I think, 43 million visitors. And yeah, that was also good discussions and insights. So shout out to Florian.
And thank you again. I will stop the recording now.